Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Naaman with the Great Millstone Camp here in DC. Once again, back for another video. But first and foremost, call all Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekah Radash, and of course, once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways, as usual, week in and week out. Also, factor in the many, many videos that are uploaded that go out across four corners of the earth. All right. To assist the men of the Lord. All right. In the edification of the hopeful elect of our people. All right. This is a constant thing. So there are no excuses in not knowing what's going on. All the information, all the scriptural knowledge is there for you. All right. And this is the way the Most High works. You have no excuse. None. All right. So let's go ahead and get this copyright disclaimer out of the way. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, all of which I am doing. Nothing more. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. There you go. Fair use, fair use, fair use. So what I want to talk about today, isn't it a beautiful thing when you're seeing your main enemy rush headlong into his own destruction? Beautiful, ain't it? Beautiful. And what I mean by that is these dumbasses. Well, like the saying goes, you can't change your nature. And the thing is, I'm thinking about, see, all these so-called black people wanted was just a fair shake. But your hatred of Jake, especially here in America, was so much that you never even considered. You brought all these other groups over here to interfere with Jake's development, his ability to care for himself and his family. And see, that's the thing, because scripturally we understand that this is what you were supposed to do. Hey, you're doing what you were created to do. Even though I know that you don't believe it. And I'm strictly speaking to the Edomites, the so-called white people. They happen to see this. See, you're that puppet. All right? And you're doing everything prophecy says you would do. We being under the curses, hey, you're doing what you were supposed to do. Yeah. But it sure is nice to see it once you know what's really going on and the blessing that we have received in order to be able to see that, to have received that ourselves. And we can decipher through the Holy Spirit of these scriptures. All right, like it says, the gift of prophecy is the greatest gift. You go into 1 Corinthians 12th chapter, read it for yourself. All those gifts of the Spirit. And yet we're watching this live and in color while you run headlong into your own destruction. In case you're wondering what I'm talking about, this is Kim Iverson, an outtake of her larger video that she did, and it says, "America last." Congress surrenders our military to Israel. They say it was a close vote, but still, it's coming up to, the House has already voted. It's coming up to the Senate. Yeah. How what can you say? What can you say? This is one of those inevitabilities. Use that big word. You were going to do it. All right. Like I say, all Jake wanted what was rightfully his, but nah, that's too much for you. Your hatred of us. And this is to show the level of cowardice. Yeah, your people are cowards outright, are people that can't defend themselves, and you've had here and pretty much do whatever you want with us and to us. You want that to last forever. But that's just it. It's not. See, you have a time limit. All right. And let me get this. All right. You have, just like any other kingdom, and we realize that, yeah, you're pressed for time. We know Revelation 12:12. I'll get that. But here's, whoops, I said Psalms. I meant Job. Oops. Come on now. All right. Job 14:5 tells us, seeing his days are determined. All right. And the heading of this, Job continues, says, death comes soon to all, and that includes your rulership. All right. You as well, but now we're talking about your rulership. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So every kingdom has had a date, a time stamp. All right, and we know we're in that, we just passed that 250 year mark. We're in the 250th year. Wow. All right. So we're seeing now, and we can count on all kinds of shit to go wrong. So what you have here, as I was getting to, Congress surrenders our military to Israel. Let's go ahead and get into it.
The House went and did it. They passed the NDAA, which enshrined into law the U.S. and
Republican, yay, 209, nay, 207. Democrat, yay, 6, nay, 205. Totals, yay, 216, nay, 212. Look at that. Look at that.
Israeli militaries merging together. There is some confusion on the final vote. It's really kind of unclear. It looks like Thomas Massie was the only Republican to vote no on the final passage. However, other reporting published shortly afterward, including The Guardian, states that 7 Republicans voted against the final passage, and six Democrats actually voted for it. So it was almost a completely partisan vote where most Democrats said no to the bill. Most Republicans said yes to the bill. Some Democrats voted yes on it. A very small group of Republicans voted no to this. The Democrats, by the way, who voted no to this bill, it wasn't because we were going to merge our militaries together with Israel. That's not what shocked them, of course. It was everything else. It was just they cited everything else, but they never brought up the merging with the Israeli militaries. That's something that, believe me, if Democrats were in charge, they would have baked it in there just as easily, and they would have passed it just as fast. So
For those of you that think there's a
this is
difference,
a
there's
sad,
not.
dark day. I think that all of these people that have voted yes, most of them Republicans, have proven to be traitors to the country, and I don't use that word lightly. I do think they are traitors to the country. They knew about this provision. They put it in anyway. They voted for it, knowing that it would end U.S. sovereignty. And this is, to me, the most consequential. This is the most consequential thing that has happened in the history of our government, in my opinion. This is the single most consequential thing. This is the one thing that hands over control of our nation to a foreign terrorist country.
Treasonous.
But even if it wasn't a terrorist country, just a foreign country, the founding fathers would be rolling in their graves. It's one thing to go to civil war against each other. That was obviously quite shocking. It's another thing to create the Federal Reserve. I know the founding fathers didn't they weren't into that either. It's another thing for them to see, if the founding fathers were to kind of rise up today and they saw, wow, you guys have all these political parties and they weren't really in favor of that. You guys have all these taxes. They certainly didn't want that. Like everything they fought against is now here in full force here in the United States at this point. But I think the single most shocking thing would be, what did you idiots do? You actually handed control over our military to a foreign government? Well, that's it. You're no longer your own country. That's the end. I mean, you could be at each other's throat, fighting in civil wars against one another. You could be, arguing all day about trans rights, abortion rights, about January 6th. You idiots could be arguing about anything. Fine, okay, but at least you're still your own country. But when you actually hand over your military power to a foreign government, you are no longer sovereign. That is the end. There's no coming back from that. Total and complete idiocy. It's beyond that. It's treason. It's full-blown treason. What were these idiots thinking? This is the beginning of the end. It is, again, you could argue all day, well, no, it was when we allowed, Citizens United and all the money to flood into our political system, and AIPAC was able to grasp control of all of our politicians and the Epstein files, and they were able to blackmail our politicians. That stuff's all bad enough too.
All because of your hatred of Jake, of us, and your greed. You were easy pickings.
That's all really bad. And that certainly showed a level of takeover and infiltration from a foreign government, for sure. They had infiltrated us. They had blackmailed us. They had brainwashed us. They had bribed us, right? They'd done all of these things. But we didn't enshrine into law them actually having power over our military. And once you lose control over the military, you've lost it. That's it. That is the one thing that keeps you sovereign. That's the one thing that keeps you sovereign. That's actually why so many people who are defenders of the Second Amendment want their guns. Because once you allow the government to take your guns, what happens? You're no longer really truly independent. Your government knows that you can't rise up against them. Now, some will argue, well, that's dumb to think you could rise up against your government anyway. No, it isn't. People do it all the time. In fact, hello, founding of the nation. That's exactly what civil wars are. That's exactly what revolutions are. Yes, you can. People do it all the time. It's written in all the history books. So spare me. You absolutely can rise up against your government. But you have to have your guns. Okay, so that's on an individual level. That's on a citizen versus government level. Now, when you hand over the control over your military technology, the weaponry, the brains of your military to a foreign power, they now have you by the throat.
You're my bitch.
You're locked up. I mean, you're the man behind the iron mask at that point. And that is what they've done to us with this. Now, it hasn't passed the Senate. I get it. It's not there yet, but the Senate will pass this because we're just that dumb and bought off and bribed. And the Israelis got to this point. They infiltrated us behind enemy lines, right? They infiltrated us to the point where they could get to this point where they could actually write into legislation. It was already bad enough that they were passing laws about censoring Americans, right?
And that says a lot. When I pulled up, when you saw that vote, Think about that. Almost split down the middle. What does that say about how many they've managed to get a hold of? And who's to say the majority of those that voted nay, all right, that they didn't have their hooks into them. They just, to the point where they say, you know what, fuck it. Now it's in the hands of the Senate, which is only 100 members. Wow. Just wow.
Well, for years, the billionaire class told us crypto is for criminals, conspiracy theorists, basement weirdos, that it's dangerous, it's stupid, it's reckless. And then it turns out, quietly behind the scenes, they were doing it themselves. Now BlackRock's involved. Major banks are offering crypto in their portfolios. Hedge funds are buying in. But here's the problem. Crypto still feels intimidating to most of us. Most people don't even know where to begin with crypto, and the thought of trying to figure out when to buy, when to sell, how to buy, how to sell, in order to maximize investment growth is just like, forget it. That's why Block Trust IRA is excellent. Block Trust IRA lets you hold Bitcoin and other major cryptocurrencies inside of a tax-advantaged IRA. But what really makes them different is their Animus AI system. It's their proprietary AI that indicates exactly when to buy, hold, or sell to maximize growth. Their AI is constantly analyzing the market for volatility and other behavior, looking for opportunities. So rather than just buying Bitcoin and hoping, their system is actively using the swings in the market to your advantage. Their Animus AI is so good, it outperformed Bitcoin itself by over 250% since 2020. They also use secure cold storage, insurance protection, and they make the whole process extremely simple.
None of this shit is going to help you.
If you want to learn more, go to
day of wrath.
blocktrustkim.com. You can book a free consultation, and right now they're offering a $2,500 funding bonus to get started. Again, that's blocktrustkim.com.
Never mind.
38 states or more now have laws about you're not allowed legally to boycott, divest, or sanction against Israel. You're not allowed to do those things. You lose your government contracts. You lose your jobs. If you're a teacher, you lose your job if they found out. Right? They already were able to wiggle in and
This place is
really
through. That's what we've been trying to tell
break away at U.S. values. But this is a whole nother level of, I am shocked. You know, so many Republicans were so upset about the possibility of the global pandemic response, handing away our sovereignty to a global medical group that would determine pandemic response. They didn't want that. They fought against it. They said, we can't allow this. And
makes you wonder what happened in the meantime, between time. Now all of a sudden, they so quick to, might as well say, hand over the reins to the pretenders. Boy, this, you know, the level of, what's the word I want to use? Of cunning and deceit and the patience. This is something that, you know, once they worm their way in, that infestation, all right, through religion, and they got these evangelists and preachers, pastors, whatever you want to call these dimwits. Goes to show you, oh man, that's what I said at the onset of the video, where wow, they just, because of your hatred of us and your greed, you were so easy to manipulate. You were so busy looking within, all right, at us, you couldn't see the real enemy. And now it's all but over. You think people such as myself are going to mourn? Hell no. I'm happy. Very, very happy. Salaki. To see what's going on because, hey, Sirach 25:7, that's one of those scriptures I always use. Let's get it real quick. All right, this is the time that, hey, we waited for. All right. As it says in Revelation 13 and 10, the patience of the saints. This is Sirach 25:7. There be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that hath joy of his children, which you really can't hear. You do the best that you can. All right. And he that liveth, this is the point, to see the fall of his enemy, which is what you're seeing now. Yes. As Yahweh Shah said in Luke 10:18 about Satan falling from heaven. Let's get that. Let's go to Luke 10:18. All right. Return of the 72, and it says, and that's the Lord. I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven, and we're seeing him fall quickly from his rulership. That heaven means rulership. In that context, Slovakia once again. All right, and that's what's happening now.
And we didn't join in. Saying, and the argument was we would be handing away our sovereignty if we allowed a global governance board to run our pandemic response. That we'd be giving up our sovereignty. Well, we just gave up our sovereignty, and this, I can't say this enough. It's just like what happened with NATO. And you can see how hard it is for these European countries. They don't really like being a part of NATO. I think a lot of them realize, oh, we're not really sovereign anymore. We have to do everything the United States says. And the minute we say we're not going to do what they want, we start getting penalized. They start holding it against us. They start retaliating because the United States is big and strong. But also we control their militaries. They don't have their own tech. They don't have their own planes. They don't have their own weapons. Not really. So when you can control the flow of the weapons, when you actually control the technology, you can control the country because you could just threaten them with, we're cutting you off. And by the way, all those weapons that you have stored, where you have stored, like the nukes that are all over Europe, who controls the nukes? Not Europe. We do. Okay, so, we got nukes right there ready to nuke you if you turn against us. So it's, what you could do, the power that you have when you control the military is massive. And this integration is. Now, let me just read to you what AIPAC says. Because AIPAC has their own spin on this. So we'll talk about what AIPAC says and then what
of course they do.
Is the truth on this. So AIPAC says that the current House version, which is now Section 219. It was Section 224. The clearest wording says it would direct the Pentagon to designate an executive agent to synchronize, expand, and accelerate U.S.-Israel cooperation in defense technology research and development and related areas such as integration and industrial cooperation. AIPAC's memo says that the initiative would deepen U.S.-Israel cooperation in counter-drone technology, missile and air defense, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, and that it would synchronize, expand, and accelerate that cooperation through a Pentagon executive agent. It also says the provision does not create joint command structures or transfer any decision-making power to Israel.
They've always had for a long time people in the Pentagon. We don't actually
control France's military or Germany's military. We're not the commanders of Germany's military. We don't need to be. We command the equipment. If you can command the equipment, you command them. What are they going to do about it? The AIPAC memo explicitly rejects the claim that the provision merges the U.S. and Israeli militaries. It says the measure is a coordination mechanism for defense technology cooperation, not joint command or merged force. Again, when you hold, it's like, okay, you give your kid an allowance and you're not telling them exactly what they have to do with their money, but you certainly can because you're the one who gives them the allowance. So, you give them the appearance of making their own decisions with their money, but it's not really their money. You're the one who gave it to them. So it's that same sort of thing. So they're trying to say, look, it's not really merging or, making them one. That's not what it does. But in actuality, the section does say, this is what the section says. Well, no, actually, let me just read you a little bit more from AIPAC because I love to see what their bullshit is.
Yeah.
They said that the United States, this is from their press release, they said the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative would deepen partnerships between the United States and Israel in defense technology, focusing on areas where both countries face common security challenges, including counter-drone technology, missile and air defense, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. The United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative advances America's national security interests by directing the Pentagon to designate an executive agent to synchronize, expand, and accelerate U.S.-Israel cooperation in defense technology, research, and development. It does not create new programs or authorize additional funding. It does not create joint command structures or transfer any decision-making power to Israel. It establishes a coordination mechanism for defense technology cooperation, formalizing and strengthening existing cooperation. Existing congressional oversight of arms sales will not be affected in any way. They won't need to sell. It's a cooperation. Now the Israelis are going to be creating our missile and air defense, our counter-drone technology, our artificial intelligence, and our cybersecurity. And when they're the developers of the weapons...
Those back doors.
And the Israelis like to bake in things into their weapons.
Yes.
And phones and pagers like bombs, maybe microphones, right? But the reality is that the NDAA does, in fact, hand over that. It claims that there is going to be, it says word for word in the actual text, identify jointly developed or Israeli origin technologies with operational value that could be integrated into U.S. military systems and programs of record. So this is not, our scientists and their scientists are going to get together and develop really cool things. No, it's
the wording
explicitly says, don't listen to the AIPAC bullshit. The actual bill says, identify jointly developed or Israeli origin technologies with operational value that can be integrated into U.S. military systems and programs of record. Facilitate the movement of technologies from research and development into procurement and acquisition programs. So look at those Israeli tech companies and facilitate them, get them out of just research and development, and let's get into procurement and acquisition. So let's go ahead and buy them and integrate them in. Their tech, not American tech. You thought we had the mightiest military in the world. Why? Because we developed the weapons. We're the ones that had all the cool stuff. Well, now the Israelis have all the cool stuff, apparently, according to us. We can't make our own. We want to get it from them. And once we do that, we're their bitch.
Yep.
So,
Fools.
And the executive agent that they're creating in the Pentagon, that's a bureaucratic position. It never goes away. The Republicans who claim they're all about dwindling down our government are actually going to be increasing it.
Yep.
So it is, by adding positions that specifically just look for ways we can integrate Israel. Do we do this with any other country? Do we have this type of an agreement with Australia, with the United Kingdom, with any other nation on earth? No, we don't. We don't look for, we're specifically putting into law that the Pentagon has to look for technologies that are made by this foreign government that we can procure and acquire and integrate. And once we are reliant, we saw what happened with Pete Hegseth when he was really pissed off about Claude, right? They didn't want, Anthropic didn't want to sign away on Claude being used for the war. And this was going on right before the war in Iran started. And Claude was kind of like, or Anthropic was like, no, we don't really want to, we have some real concerns that you're going to use this to kill kids. And the US government basically threatened them and said, no, you have to do what we say. And it really put Anthropic and the US government in a really awkward situation because the government was already using Anthropic for a lot of stuff. And so the US government showed how weak it was, how vulnerable it was, and how demanding it needed to be in order to get that tech from Anthropic, because the US government didn't develop their own AI, which is what they should have been doing all along, and not relying on private companies. And all it took was, in this case, Anthropic was like, I guess, kind of the good guys, because they were like, we don't really want you to use our AI for warfare. It's not really ready for that. And the U.S. basically said, well, you have to. And they threw a fit. And then I don't know exactly what happened behind closed doors, but ultimately Anthropic signed off and Claude was used. And many suspect Claude was used to bomb the children's school in Iran on the first day of the war and killed all those kids. But the point of that story being, the U.S. showed its vulnerability there because the U.S. was reliant on an outsider's tech. Now, in that case, that outsider was an American company. But when it's a foreign government and we don't want to be a part of their wars, because after Iran, it's Turkey and Egypt, and it's never ending, and we don't want to be fighting their wars for them anymore, they're going to say, you have to. Because not only are you using our tech, but we baked in some fail-safes into that tech to make sure that you would do what we said, or you all die. The Samson option. We kill you all. We obliterate you all. We can blow up all of the bombs that we built, that you built with our tech, but our tech will blow it up right there as it sits on your soil. These idiots. I am absolutely in shock that they would do this to us. This is the end. I mean, this is it. This is how you lose your sovereignty. There were so many bad things that have happened all through the years. We could point out, 100 different things in the last 100 years that our stupid government did. But this is truly the dumbest, because this is it. A terrorist country is now going to be integrating. We're going to be using all of their tech for our military.
Which all of that is going to be turned inward. My next video going to be about that same thing.
And that's it. We're at their behest. So who are the traitors? They should be exposed. And I do believe they're absolutely traitors to the nation, traitors to this country. This is the worst. This is worse than starting the war in Iraq, starting the war in Afghanistan. This is worse than even just starting the war in Iran. I mean, this is the worst. It's the worst. I'm in absolute shock.
Yep, all tied together. All right. This is being done for a reason. All right, so with that, I hope whoever views this video, as usual, all right, has been edified. That's what we do here at Great Millstone. These people are fools. This is the very definition of a fool. All right. And it couldn't happen to a nicer people as the American so-called white man. It is beautiful. All right. These two deserve each other. All right. So with that, once again, I'd like to remind you to remain circumspect out here. Keep your eyes and ears open, especially now. Like I said, the next video is going to go into how this is going to be used and for what purpose they're going to use it against you stupid Americans. All right, so until the next video, hey, shalom.